I shall cause
thy sick to reach all the corners of the earth.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a brand new episode of RoundUp.
Here's what we got coming up in this fantastic episode.
Coming up, farmers across Europe stage ongoing protests. We continue our series on prophets in the Holy Qu'ran. And finally, it's a leap year. What does that mean?
Nasir, I am really looking forward to see what reports we have available in this episode.
Me too, but we'll just have to wait a little bit because we've got Arshman to tell us the top stories from this week. Assalamu alaikum Arshman, what do you have for us today?
Assalamu alaikum Nasir and Ghani bhai. The United States blocked the United Nations Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The resolution was vetoed for the third time since the conflict began on October 7. The US insisted on a temporary ceasefire linked to the release of hostages held by Hamas.
The United States is working on a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas, along with Egypt and Qatar. This hostage deal would bring an immediate and sustained period of calm to Gaza for at least 6 weeks, and from there, we could take the time to build a more enduring peace.
This marks the second time the US proposed such a resolution since October. Algeria argued that supporting the resolution was crucial for the Palestinian right to life. Despite the UN General Assembly's call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in December, the Security Council remains divided on the issue. Our next story is a really exciting one. OpenAI, a company that makes really smart computer programs, has created a new tool called Sora that can turn text into videos. For example, if you write something like a woman walking down a rainy street, Sora will create a video showing exactly that. But some people are worried about Sora. They think it could be used to trick or fool people. Others are concerned about things like who owns the stuff Sora uses to make videos and whether it's fair to the original creators. OpenAI says they're working hard to make sure Sora is safe to use. They're getting help from experts who test it and make sure it's not being used in bad ways. But even though they're trying their best, they admit they can't predict everything people might do with Sora. In Milan, Italy, people are wearing face masks outside because the air is really dirty and causing skin irritation and eye discomfort. The air in Milan has too many tiny particles and pollutants, which is not good for our health. This problem isn't just in Milan, though. The whole Po Valley, where Milan is located, has lots of people and lots of pollution. Italy was even told off by the EU Court of Justice for not keeping the air clean. But don't worry, people are fixing it. The European Council wants to change the rules to make sure the air is clean by 2050. That's a long way off, but it's important to start now to protect our health and the environment. So in Milan and other places with dirty air, people are taking steps to stay safe wearing masks. And all European leaders are working on ways to make sure we can breathe cleaner air in the future. Jazakallah Nasir and Ghani bhai. That's all from me this week.
Jazakallah Ushman for the update of the top stories this week.
Let's take a look at some of the points taken from this week's sermon.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to this week's Friday sermon discussion. Today, we delve into the extraordinary life of Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu and the fulfillment of a great prophecy. Beloved Hazur mentioned a question often pondered by our brothers and sisters. Why celebrate Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu's birthday if we don't generally observe such occasions? The answer lies in understanding the significance of the event. We're not celebrating the birthday of Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. Rather, we are acknowledging the fulfillment of a great prophecy foretold by the promised Messiah ﷺ over a century ago. This prophecy announced the arrival of a son with exceptional qualities, and Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu embodied these traits, leaving a permanent mark on the Muslim world. His profound intellect, comprehensive knowledge and unwavering commitment to humanity set him apart. Notably, scholars like Maulana Ghulam Rasul Meher and Lala Kanwar Sain praised his contributions to Islam and society. Despite limited formal education, Hazrat Muslim Maud emerged as a beacon of wisdom, earning admiration even from non-Muslim intellectuals. His advocacy for Pakistan's establishment and defense against external threats highlights his key role in shaping world affairs. Moreover, Hazrat Muslim Maud left behind a rich legacy of writings spanning numerous volumes on diverse topics aimed at guiding and educating Muslims. His deep understanding of the Holy Qu'ran, evident in extensive notes that exceed even his renowned 10-volume commentary, remains incomparable. His legacy serves as a testament to the truthfulness of the promised Messiah ﷺ and as a source of inspiration for strengthening our faith. Amidst our gatherings to remember the fulfillment of this special prophecy, beloved Hazur reminded us that we must acknowledge the challenges faced by Ahmadis, particularly in Pakistan, where they are targeted by politicians and clerics for personal gain. Beloved Hazur Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Asl Aziz urged us to increase prayers and acts of charity for the safety of our Ahmadi brothers and sisters. Furthermore, we must pray for the imprisoned Ahmadis in Yemen and the people of Palestine enduring oppression. As we conclude, let's remember the power of prayer in adversity, continuing to supplicate for peace and protection for all facing hardship. Until next week, Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah Rahel for that discussion about the Friday sermon.
And don't forget to watch the entire sermon on any of MTA's various platforms.
Moving on now, farmers across Europe, as well as other countries like India, have been taking part in mass protests for the past few weeks.
Well, that sounds really interesting, so let's take a look at why they are protesting.
Farmers in Europe are taking a stand as they block highways across Europe in protest. But why are they protesting? Well, it all comes down to money and rules. They say they're not making enough money and there are too many rules about protecting the environment that makes things harder for them.
We are actually a big victim because we're all little people, independent farmers, and we don't have a big lobby with billions of dollars.
The government in France is trying to make things right. They've promised to stop raising taxes on diesel fuel for farmers, and they're working on making the rules less complicated. They're even offering extra help for farmers who are dealing with a disease affecting their cattle.
I'm not completely satisfied, so I'm a little sad. I still have big expectations for the coming weeks or months to be sure that these are not empty promises and that everything that has been said since the 3 speeches, in fact since last Friday in the south, Monday at the Place Bourbon, and then yesterday, that it is really implemented and that it really brings concrete results for us.
But what's next? Farmers are still upset and are planning to keep protesting. The government says they're okay with the protests as long as they stay peaceful. They're also talking to other countries in Europe to try figure out how to help farmers there too.
Farmers in Belgium, Germany and Romania are also protesting. In Belgium, they even stopped trucks carrying vegetables and dumped them out in protest. It's a big issue that's affecting farmers all over Europe.
Farmers are feeling like they're forgotten, they're not being included in the conversation. This feeling that they're being faced with great legislative procedural changes at a very large quantity, and they're trying to keep up. They're trying to make their practices more sustainable, but they're only being faced with either more legislation or even plans to decrease production. And I think that causes a lot of feelings of frustration.
So what's being done about all of this? Well, the French government is talking to other countries to try and help farmers. They're also looking at ways to support livestock farmers who are struggling. And they're asking for help from the European Union to make things better for farmers all across Europe.
Another big concern for farmers is the environment. They say that some of the rules about protecting the environment make things harder for them. They're worried that they won't be able to grow enough food to feed everyone if things keep going like this.
It's a complicated issue but it's important to remember that farmers play a big role in making sure we all have enough to eat.
Nasser, let's hope that it gets resolved soon.
Yes, indeed. Inshallah, it will get resolved soon. But for now, let's head over to Canada for our next segment in our Prophets in the Holy Quran series.
We've been looking at the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's take a look.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of RoundUp. Today we will continue the story of our beloved Prophet, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the last episode, we talked about his youth and his exemplary character. Today we will talk about the first revelation and his early prophethood. At the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's youth, Arabia was an immoral and idol-worshipping society. But even as a child, the Holy Prophet ﷺ denounced idols and devoted himself to the one true God. He would often go to a cave called the Cave of Hira to meditate and worship the one true God. One day, when the Prophet had retreated to the Cave of Hira, an angel came to him. It was the angel Gabriel, or Jibrail. The angel said to him to recite, but the Prophet did not know how. The angel insisted, "Recite in the name of thy Lord who created man from a clot of blood. Recite, thy Lord is the most beneficent, who taught man by the pen, taught him what he knew not." This was the first revelation from Allah to the Holy Prophet ﷺ and the first verses of the Holy Qu'ran. The Holy Prophet ﷺ was stunned and scared by this powerful instance. Overwhelmed, he went to his wife, Hazrat Khatija radiallahu anha, who comforted him. After this first revelation, the Holy Prophet ﷺ did not receive a revelation for 40 days. Then Allah commanded the Holy Prophet ﷺ to bring his message to the people of Mecca. The first converts to Islam were Hazrat Khatija radiallahu anha, the Prophet's wife, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the Prophet's childhood friend, Hazrat Zaid radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ's freed slave, and Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, his cousin. The early Muslims began to face persecution when they brought their message to the world. The first Muslims were women, children, and slaves who experienced torture and abuse from the Meccans. Despite the persecution, the number of Muslims steadily increased, leading the Quraysh of Mecca to start a boycott against the Holy Prophet ﷺ and his followers. After the death of Hazrat Khatija radiallahu anha and Hazrat Abu Talib radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ journeyed to Taif with Hazrat Zaid radiallahu anhu to preach to the people. They were rejected and badly injured in an attack. When they returned, Meccan hostility increased, and after 13 long years of persecution, the Holy Prophet ﷺ received the commandment from Allah to migrate to Medina. Unable to destroy Islam with persecution, the Meccans devised a plot to assassinate the Holy Prophet ﷺ. But when they reached his home, the Holy Prophet and Hazrat Abu Bakr had already left. The Meccans, with a tracker, left in search of him. The Holy Prophet ﷺ and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu hid inside the cave of Thor. When the Meccans reached the cave, they thought that it would be impossible for anyone to hide inside of it, as it was infested with venomous snakes and its entrance was covered with a spider web. The Meccans then left the cave, and after a few days, the Holy Prophet ﷺ and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu reached Medina. The Holy Prophet ﷺ began the construction of a mosque where his camel had sat when they had reached Medina. Well, that's all we have time for today. We'll be continuing the Holy Prophet ﷺ's amazing story in the next episode. I'm Hanan Malik, reporting from MTA International, Canada Studios, Montreal Bureau. See you next time.
Jazakallah for our team in Canada for this incredibly informative and important series on the prophets in the Holy Quran.
Finally, today, it seems like the month has just begun, but it's almost over.
It does, but actually, this month is longer than usual because it's a leap year this year.
Well, Zach is here to explain why we have leap years.
Assalamu alaikum. Have you ever wondered why our calendar has an extra day every 4 years? Well, it's all thanks to something called a leap year. Let's dig deeper and understand what that means. In short, it's a year that has an extra day, making it 366 days instead of the usual 365. This way, one can consider it as Earth's special way of catching up with its own schedule, where the extra day is added to keep our calendar in sync with the Earth's orbit around the Sun. Earth doesn't take precisely 365 days to complete one orbit. It's actually about 365.25 days. To account for this extra time, we add an extra day every 4 years to make up for those quarters. This extra day, added at the end of February, is what we call a leap day. So instead of the usual 28 days, February gets 29 days in a leap year. But where did the notion of leap years originate from? Well, this concept dates back to the ancient times. The Roman calendar introduced the idea. Later, the Gregorian calendar refined it in the 16th century. This system helps us keep our seasons aligned with the calendar year. Interestingly, not every year divisible by 4 is a leap year. If a year is divisible by 100 but not 400, it is not a leap year. For example, the year 2000 divisible by both was a leap year, but 1900 wasn't. Pretty cool. So there you have it. A leap year is like a little adjustment we make to our calendar to make sure our schedules and seasons stay on track. It's a great way to sync up in our man-made system with the natural rhythm of our planet.
Wow, that was pretty interesting, Gunny, wasn't it?
It sure was. It's always nice when February flies by so we can get to spring and summer quicker. But I'm glad to have an extra day in the year.
Speaking of flying by, we're also wrapping up today's episode.
So make sure to follow us on our social media channels, Instagram and Twitter, where we bring you exclusive content from behind the scenes. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call. Thy message to reach all the corners of the earth. Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call. Thy message to reach all the corners of the earth. Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call. Thy message to reach all the corners of the earth.